could I build with these hands that you gave me? Lord, with your wisdom, there's nothing I can't make. I'll be damned if I waste a day.
The good news is we had a great time at the coast last week, and we're back at our spec house with the entire deck installed and ready to go on the second floor. So we're ready to start on walls again. The bad news is the rear end of my work truck is making a terrible knocking noise. So I have Wes over here taking a look at it. You've seen Wes before on the channel. He's a real talented, no-nonsense problem solver. He helped get the D2 running a couple of years ago. If you haven't seen my truck before, you ought to watch our video on it. I love my work truck, and I rely on it heavily. I'm just grateful that the rear end went out while it was here at the project, so at least my tools are all on site and storable and secure. The truck is parked on the empty lot next to ours, which we have been using for staging now for months, years really. I have to give another big thanks and shout out to the owner of that lot, David Brockett. He's allowing us to do this. He didn't have to allow us to do this. David is a hearing aid specialist here in Roseburg and a really terrific guy. Our second floor deck is completely done and it looks great. Everything's screwed down. We left nickel width gaps on the butt joints of all the OSB panels, and everything is measuring square and tying out nicely with the plans. I'm going to snap all of the wall lines just like we did on the first floor. So we're just following the plans and putting each edge of every wall onto our deck. We're transferring the plans from the paper to the actual house. The goal is to be as precise as possible, which translates to around a 1/16 of an inch, give or take. Now it can be hard to be super precise with a chalk line because the line itself can get pretty wide, but we're still just doing the best we can to be accurate. Now normally, we would be snapping these lines, especially the interior walls, planning on building and assembling everything within the next day or two. But that's not really the case here. Starting right now, the building sequence on this second floor is going to be different than most other houses. This will make more sense as the series goes on. But the reason I'm putting these interior wall lines in is so I can visualize where they are and how much space I have in order to decide which exterior wall to build first. Remember that the deck itself is a work surface, and deciding the order in which to build and raise the walls can make a real difference in the overall efficiency of the construction process. One thing we're doing that's a little bit different than what is thought of as being standard, perhaps, is that we're going to build all of the exterior walls and then build the roof. Once the roof is on, we'll step back inside and assemble these interior partitions. We're doing that both because of the way these walls have to be built and the fact that it will give us access with scaffolding to do the work inside that's going to have to be done if the interior partitions are not on their feet. Now you can make top plates, crown plates, bottom plates out of any 2x4 material that's long enough to cover the distance. But like always, you want to be efficient with your board lengths and minimize waste. For me, ordering plate stock in 16-foot lengths seems to be the right compromise. Now some guys will order 20-foot boards for this, and I've done that in the past, but 16 feet long seems like a safer bet to an old man. The plates are the same kiln-dried Doug fir that the studs and the beams and pretty much everything else around here are made from. So far, almost all the lumber we have used on this house has been excellent material. When you order whole units directly to your site, you're much more likely to have a lot of nice boards because they haven't been picked through by contractors and homeowners rummaging through the stacks and hand-selecting the best boards. Plus, after the stacks have been opened up, they spend a good deal of time loose, and they can curl and twist and bend. So when they come to the job site in the unit, they're generally in real nice shape. This also brings up the importance of having a good relationship with a real, honest-to-goodness, full-service lumberyard. Garrettson's Building Supply has been in business here in Roseburg for a long, long time, and have helped keep me in business for the last 25 years. Now, even though they have recently changed ownership, I've got to say, these people are in fact keeping up the good work. The top and bottom plates need to be detailed at the same time and marked at the same time. They really need to be nailed together so they don't slide even the tiniest amount, because it would throw your whole wall and in fact your whole building off. So nail the plates together, but you really only need one nail to do this, and it can usually be an 8-penny nail. The big advantage of using one nail is that after you have marked the plates and you need to cut them to length, you can simply cut the top board, pivot on that single nail to get room for your saw, cut the bottom board, and then swing them back together. You don't need to remove that nail, you just work around it. Now our weather forecast shows some rain coming in, so we took the time to cover the deck with plastic to minimize the amount of water that could soak into the OSB. Now I mentioned that OSB can handle some water, and it will be just fine, and I still stand by this. But just because a material is designed or rated to receive a certain harsh treatment doesn't mean it should have to receive that harsh treatment. Now there's no question that water is not good for any untreated lumber product, unless it still has roots attached to it. So we're doing what we can. We also went over our new chalk lines with some clear spray lacquer to try and give, just a little help, resisting the inevitable tendency to wash off of the subfloor. So now we know that that's 7'6". No guesswork about that. Everybody's on the same page. And the height of the ceiling is 8'4". I hadn't noticed that.
Hold on, not yet.
Now you've watched this plating and detailing happen once already in the downstairs. And so kind of brace yourself, because I'm going through it again, and there's reasons for that. And one of those is that the upstairs is much more complicated than the downstairs, because the upstairs is receiving a roof, and there's vaulted ceilings, and there's collar ties, and the plumbing has to come up through here again. And so even though this is the same thing, brother, it's different. As I approach detailing and putting all the information that has to be written down on these plates, I have to start first with the things that are non-negotiable, that cannot be moved, that I'm committed to either by the plans or what's in the downstairs or what the code requires. Those have to go down first. On this house, the first non-negotiable item is the hold downs. Now, not all of the hold downs on the ground floor transfer to the second floor, but several of them do, and that means that I have to have the layout for the studs that the straps will fasten to exactly right. Let me show you what they look like downstairs before I mark them out upstairs on this plate. I've got really 3 hold downs in this corner, but let's talk about this one and then this one. This right here I think is an HD5, and it is bolted with a 5/8 bolt clear down into the foundation and then screwed with structural screws to these 3 2x6s. So what I'll be marking upstairs is the location of the post that I have to put in the wall system that will be nailed to the same strap that's connected to this post, that's connected to the rim joist, and that's connected to the upstairs wall. It needs to be one continuous piece from the bottom to the top, tied together with steel at the juncture of the ground floor and the second floor. You can see now why, for me, these are the first priority item that I mark on the plates. Because there's no moving these things. I mean, there is no situation where these can be moved, and so they go onto the plates first. With the hold downs marked, the next thing is the windows. There's only one window in this whole wall. And I know that it happens 21 feet 2 inches from the outside of the world to the center of the window. All right, I marked the center. That makes it easy to lay out the window size in the opening. It's a 4.0 window, 2 feet, 2 feet to the trimmers. The trimmers and the king studs are in place, and I'll worry about the height when I'm getting ready to build it. On the end of the house, over the garage, it's a gable end, I have a 3-foot single hung window, the only one of its kind. I have the center line of the beam already on the floor, so I know where the center of the window is, and I just put in a 3.0 opening. Easy. You may notice I only have a single plate right here. We're going to have a lot to show you about that. After I detail the hold downs, the windows, the doors, any plumbing penetrations or other special instances or conditions, I go back down the wall and mark out all the studs on a 16-inch layout. Always remember that one of the primary purposes of the stud is to provide backing for drywall and wall sheathing. Those sheets usually come in 4x8 or 4x12 sheets. So if you're having questions about your stud layout, just visualize hanging these sheets and the need for the studs to be shifted 3/4 of an inch in order to allow these sheets to meet or break in the center of the studs. However you mark it, however you lay it out, just shift those studs 3/4 of an inch so that the people that come after you don't have to fight it. So there's one little, well actually not little, it's a serious curveball with this second floor wall system. And that is that I've got to frame 3 big gable end walls on the ground and raise them with the fascia board and the overhang intact. That's tricky. What that means is I'm going to put a lot of marks on these interior partitions because I'm going to carry them off the roof, stack them on the ground, and then bring them up here once the gable ends are built and stood on their feet. So I'm going to put more identifying marks on these walls than I would ordinarily do because it's probably going to be, you know, maybe 2 weeks before I actually bring them back up here and put them together.
Bye-bye.
Hey, what's your name? What's your name?
Two. Don't fall, okay?
Oh.